Welcome back to B.Hooked TV. I'm your host, Brittany, and I am here to help you turn yarn into anything you want. Your hobby, or your lifestyle, or maybe some mix of the two. Now in today's episode, we'll talk more along the lifestyle aspect of that because I'm going to take you on a journey with me. So it's no secret that crochet and knitting and anything yarn related is a big passion of mine. It's what I love doing. But in my personal life, one of my big passions is planning and productivity. And I love to sort of overlap those two passions and be able to teach you something about productivity and goal setting as it relates to our craft. Before we move on to today's show, I make a new episode of B.Hooked TV every single week, and I would love to see you here for the next one. So be sure to subscribe to the show so you won't miss it. So last year, I had the opportunity to speak in front of over 100 different makers, crochet enthusiasts, knitting enthusiasts, just overall yarn fanatics. And it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. One of the things that wasn't necessarily on my goal list for 2018 was speaking. But it was in my mind. It was something I knew I wanted to do as I progressed in my career and here at B.Hooked. But I was presented with this opportunity that I really just couldn't turn down. And to be honest, I kind of put that goal off time and time again because I was scared. Just the bottom line, I was not very big on public speaking in school. I took a class in college and I just did what I could to get by. But I knew that that was one thing that I needed to do because I was kind of scared to do it. I just thought, I have to do this. Because I'm scared to do it, I have to do it. And that's how I knew it was the right thing. And I am so glad that I did because I was able to accomplish something that I didn't think I would ever be able to accomplish. So today I'm taking you on that journey with me to Chicago so that you can just see and feel the experience. This is more of a vlog style episode. And by the way, if you like this sort of thing, I would love to do more of this in the future. I had a ton of fun recording this and a ton of fun just creating it in general. So if you're interested in more vlog style or basically come along the ride with me, let me know in the comment section because I'll do more of them. If it's something that you like, I'll do it. So let me know and hang on for the ride. Going to Chicago. All right, so it's just after 9 p.m. Had a really long day of traveling. I just went down and had some dinner. I've got my belly really full. Now I want to practice my keynote presentation a couple more times before I completely disconnect for the day. I want to have a lot of quality time to recharge, to make sure that I am fresh and on my game first thing in the morning so that all of this hard work goes exactly the way I plan. I put about 70 hours of preparation into this keynote, and that's crazy, right? That's way more than I spend on a project. This keynote means the world to me. This first opportunity is just I can't even describe to you how excited I am for it. I can't wait to share my message. I know it has the potential to really change people's lives. And that has really motivated me and driven me forward through all of the work, all of the fear, all of the nerves. I'm ready. All right, so I'm here, I'm at the event, super excited, kind of just sitting around right now. They're still doing the setup. I took a few minutes to walk around, check the setup, make sure it all jives with what I've been practicing over the last several months, and I'm so excited. I had no idea how excited I was, and gosh, I just can't wait to share this message. I go on in about an hour, which is great. I don't have to sit and think about the nerves or anything like that. I can just go into it and then enjoy the rest of the day. So I'm super stoked about that. I'm really excited to share this journey with you today. So let's go. It's gonna be a ride. You were born to be real, not to be perfect. Perfection could be the one thing right now that's keeping you from living your dream. It's kind of a dirty word, right, when we think about it? Perfection. Let me show you a little thing about perfection.
Okay, now what we need to do is set up to join with our starting chain here. So actually we're going to chain 4 one more time. And then we're going to slip stitch into our third chain over here. And so you're hooking to the third chain and slip stitch. And that finishes round number 3. Okay, here's where it gets a little bit tricky. We're going to have to move our hook into some awkward positions in order to get these petals to sit in front and behind each other like they do. So what we're going to do, we're going to pull up this loop a little bit, and we're going to drop it. But hold on to it. Hold on to it with your thumb and your finger, and we're going to insert our hook into this stitch that's right next to the double crochet space. Go ahead and insert your hook. And now in order to make
The timid girl behind the camera here, she had one dream: to share what she knew about crochet with whoever was interested in learning. Did she have it all figured out? Obviously not. Did she have a solid plan? No, not really. This girl made lots of mistakes. So what makes this so perfect? She took action in spite of all this. Does anyone know who that girl is? Go ahead and shout it out if you know. Yes, that was me. Now this video is incredibly embarrassing for many reasons, but I want to share it with you today to demonstrate how you don't have to be perfect to take action on your dreams. I didn't have it all figured out, but I went for it anyway. I didn't let it hold me back that I had a really bad camera. My hands wouldn't stay in the frame no matter how hard I tried, and the autofocus kind of makes me dizzy, right? A lot has changed since then, but the one thing that stayed the same is my dream, to share my passion with the world. Today I want to share with you that not only are your dreams attainable, but how you can make them your reality. It's interesting that in this context, we call them our dreams, right? I don't know about you, but not a single thing I've ever dreamt at night has come true, and that's a really good thing. I had some crazy dreams last night, by the way. Rather than refer to them as your dreams, these things that we're primed to believe aren't going to come true, think of them now as chapters in your story, your life story, and your business story. And here's my favorite. I also like to think of them as destinations, places you want to go, and eventually, places you've been. Finding success is a lot like planning for a trip. When you want to go somewhere, what do? You figure out where you want to go, how you're going to get there, and then you go. Finding success is no different. You first need to figure out what you want to achieve, how you're going to achieve it, and then you take action. Now, this is 2018, so I'm going to assume that most of us here have a cell phone on us. So go ahead and raise your hand if you can get to your cell phone quickly and you have the Google Maps app installed. I'm going to ask for some help here. Hi, what's your name? Can you help me out?
Carrington.
Carrington, hi. Awesome. So go ahead and open up your Maps app. And once that gets going, type the destination I don't know in that search bar. So we're telling Google, hey, we're going somewhere, but I don't know where it is. And then when you hit the search button, watch the bottom of your screen so you can share the message that you see pop up. No results for I don't know. Yeah. The truth is, if we don't know where we're headed, we'll never get there. I want you to take a journey with me today as we take your first step to finding your destination, mapping your route. We're going to stop dreaming and start doing. Action inspires more action. When you take that first step, you'll want to take another. Now, you might be tempted to wait until everything is perfect and in its place, but let me share a little secret with you. Perfect isn't real. It's a great thing to strive for, but it's the single most debilitating thing for your business. Remember that confidence and mastery come with practice, while patience and success, they come when you realize you aren't going to be perfect the first time, probably even never. Does anyone here have a dream that they wish were their reality right now? Yeah, lots of you. That's great. You know what? We don't have to dream anymore. Take this journey with me today as I share with you the 6 things I do every time I prepare for a new goal. These things are so important to me in my life, in my business, that I revisit them every single year, sometimes multiple times a year. I'm confident that if you incorporate these 6 things into your life and in your business, you'll be well on your way to making those dreams your reality. So our MAPS exercise showed us that if we don't know where we're headed, we'll never get there. So naturally, the first thing we should do is figure out our destination, right? Makes sense. And that's true. We'll get there. But there is one prerequisite to that. One thing that is so important that if you skip this step, there's no way you can proceed with that first step. This thing is so important that it has the potential to impact every decision you make from this moment forward. Some people call it their unfair advantage. Others call it their unique selling proposition. I like to call it your purpose. What are you great at? I've mentioned on the podcast before that The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan is required reading for anyone seriously looking to make a transformation in their lives. They say, extraordinary results are directly determined by how narrow you can make your focus. Now this quote, we can apply to so many areas of our lives, but for what we're trying to accomplish right now, we need to narrow our focus and figure out what it is that we're great at, what our purpose is. Simply put, we need to figure out what it is you bring to the table and to this industry. We all have something unique that we can leverage in order to find success. I didn't find my true purpose until 2 years after I started B.Hooked Crochet. A friend recommended the book Strengths Finder to me, and my entire perspective shifted. Now, this book isn't your typical read. Its sole purpose is to evaluate you based on your responses to a survey that's included. Now, I know you're thinking, personality test? Really? That's what she bases her business on? I know, I was skeptical too, but that skepticism melted away when the results described me to a T. Think about it. We know ourselves better than anyone else. We'll rarely ever admit that, but we can't quite put our finger on exactly what it is we're great at. This book did that for me. It helped me identify that what I thought was my biggest flaw was actually my number one strength. Now, in case you're wondering, my number one strength is learner. So you can imagine why I love teaching so much. I've made it a huge part of my life and of my business. Now, I'm not saying you have to have StrengthsFinder in order to figure out what it is you're great at, but it's a great place to start if you are like me and you can't quite put your finger on what it is your superpower is. So you can get this resource, you can check it out, or another option is you can tap into your network. Ask your friends, your family, your coworkers what it is you're great at. You might be surprised by some of the responses you'll hear. The goal is for us to figure out what it is you're great at, and more importantly, how you plan to serve the world with that strength. Now, once you have this figured out, then next comes the fun part. We get to start crafting our dream. We'll move into that first step and brainstorm our ideas. Now, I want each and every one of you to make a promise to me right now, and I'll hold you to it, to set aside some time for a brainstorming session. And in that session, you'll break it down into two parts. Your first part is what I call your creative phase. You're going to brain dump all of the ideas that are going through your head. It doesn't matter what it is. If it comes to your mind, you think, yeah, that's pretty cool. If I could do that, write it down. This is your creative phase. You'll work on that for 10 to 15 minutes until you kind of run out of ideas, and then you'll move into that second phase. This is our refining phase. We're going to take that big long list and refine it down to 4 to 6 things. We want to make sure that we're not going too far out of the realm of that 4 to 6 things. What happens when you create a list for yourself, a to-do list? If you've got more than 6 things on your list, you'll look at that when you're really motivated, you're ready to go, you're on fire. You'll look at that and your brain says, whoa, it's way too much work. And it checks out. We want to set yourself up for success and not stress. So keep your list of 4 to 6 things that you can accomplish that following year. We're going to take the thoughts out of your head, get them onto paper so that you can commit to them. Now, here we are in the Windy City, and we're probably surrounded by millions of pounds of steel and brick and concrete. Why aren't we afraid that one of these buildings is just going to cave in on us? Well, we know that each one of these buildings was engineered to have a strong support system. Your dream, your business, and most importantly, you need a strong support system too. I can recall a time when I was sitting at my computer on a Saturday. I just wrapped up a long week. I put in 30 hours for a book that I was writing, and not to mention my full-time job. I was hustling in those days, but it really just felt like I was spinning my wheels. I looked up at my husband in a moment of just sheer defeat, and I said, why am I doing this? What is all this work for? I didn't feel like I was working towards something, but just working tirelessly. Now, the long and dreadful chapter of that part of my life was kind of messy. I'd been working for the same company for about 5 years, gave them everything I had and then some. I got the degree, I had the benefit package, right? I was doing everything that everybody else said I should, but I wasn't happy, and I felt guilty about that. So I came home from work one evening, I just couldn't take it anymore. And my husband, he seriously deserves like a gold star, because this meltdown session that I had, I'm not quite proud of, but it was important. And he listened, and At the end of that long talk, he looked at me and he said, "Brittany, do you remember the time you said, 'What is all this work for?' It was for this moment, to prepare for your dream." He encouraged me to hold my head high and set my sights on the one thing that I knew I was great at, the one thing that would finally make me happy, going full-time with B.Hooked. Now, that night changed the entire course of both of our lives. We were terrified. But here's the thing. Fear is an indicator. Fear is your best sign that you're doing exactly what you should be because you truly care about the outcome. The fear that I felt that night was how I knew that I was doing the right thing and that I knew I would find success because I had no other choice. So fear is your indicator and it's your motivator. A great quote from Jim Rohn says, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with." Think about that. And think about the 5 people that you spend most of your time with. Your thoughts, actions, and everything in between are an average of these 5 people. That can be a scary thing, right? But it doesn't have to be. Surround yourself by people who believe in you. Surround yourself by people who understand you and your purpose. Surround yourself by people who will always drive you forward. Now, I'm not ashamed to admit that if it weren't for my support system, I don't know where I would be. I certainly wouldn't be standing here today. And I don't want you to feel discouraged that, well, you've been building this support system for 5 years. That's true. But I took that first step once to building that support system. And as we move into our second step, we're going to build our support system. These people are going to be who get you through the hard times, who motivate you, keep you focused and centered on your goal. Build your support system. Now, after we get these 2 really important things out of the way, I kind of geek out on this part a little bit. Before we move into our first real creative phase, our third step, I want you to understand a little something about the platform and its role in your goal. Now, this is something that we kind of don't think about, right? We think, oh, I love Instagram, so I'm going to use Instagram. But you can be really strategic in what platform you choose to accomplish your goals. A couple examples is actually the first platform in the B.Hooked story wasn't a website or even a YouTube channel. It was actually a Pinterest page. I found myself really frustrated by pins that didn't lead to where they said they would, and I created a page that only curated functional pins. Identify a problem and create a solution. Now, of course, another example to that is the YouTube channel. When I first discovered that you could learn how to crochet on YouTube for free on your couch, I was hooked. I shamelessly consumed probably weeks worth of crochet tutorials, and I'm a little ashamed to admit that, all right? I get a little obsessed when I find something new that I'm super passionate about. But during that time, I learned so much, but not just about how to crochet. I learned that I was finding more questions than answers. And there were several instances where I felt like I was learning something the hard way rather than learning from the video. This made me realize that perhaps my particular style of learning wasn't covered in that endless supply of videos on YouTube, and a crazy thing happened. I found my niche. Identify a problem and create the solution. Now, of course, several other platforms followed the Pinterest page and the YouTube channel, the website, my other social pages, and most recently, the podcast. Does anyone here listen to the show? Wow! Oh my gosh. I love you guys. Thank you so much. And if you didn't raise your hand, I want to love you guys. So the podcast has a special place in my heart for a couple of reasons. It didn't help me achieve just one of my goals, but actually 2. There was a point when I felt like I needed and wanted to have a deeper connection with my audience. So I started looking around at the brands and the creators that I felt most connected with. There was one common denominator. Those people were whose podcast I consumed every single week. So I thought I was onto something. Okay, I can start a podcast. I can do that. Well then, the other big goal that I had that just so happened to be for that very same year was, well, I'm standing in front of you today. I wanted to be able to share my message with a wonderful crowd like this. But I'll be honest, I wasn't confident in my ability to relay my message. You know, we take talking for granted, right? We don't think about the fact that you need practice to speak. So I thought, okay, I need practice speaking so I can be confident. How do you do that? Well, I need to talk, obviously. How do you talk on a regular basis? And since my coworkers are of the furry kind, that was kind of out of the question. They're great listeners, but they're not very good conversationalists. A podcast. That's how I can be able to talk every single week, connect with wonderful people, and hone in on my speaking skills. So these are the kinds of things I want you to think about when you're looking at your list of goals and you're figuring out the platform that's going to be right for each one of them. So step number 3 is to identify a problem and create the solution, and then figure out what platform can act as the vehicle for that. So we agree that we'll never reach an unknown destination, but the same goes for a destination without a route. We'll never get there. So as we move now into step number 4, I don't want you to ever assume that this must be the place where you're standing right now, because you can be deliberate in that. You can know that this is the place because you've paved the way. And that's what we're going to do in step 4. We're going to create a checklist. I love checklists if you haven't figured that out. You'll take your list of 4 to 6 things and you'll work them one by one, just so you can be focused on each one of those things. You'll list out your checklist, basically the steps that you need to take in order to get yourself from point A, where you are right now, to point B. Now again, you want to make sure that you don't give yourself a long checklist, because when you do that, what happens? Your brain's like, whoa, no way, checks out. It's too much work. So I like to keep it between 5 to 10 things. That's pretty manageable for me. So I'll work through that on each one of my goals. This is your plan, your action plan, for the rest of the year. And I personally like to do this during my brainstorming session because I kind of have the creative juices flowing. I'm focused at that point, but you can do it whenever you want. The main purpose here is, again, to get the thoughts out of your head and onto paper so that you can commit to them, but now giving yourself a checklist so that you know exactly what you need to do and you don't have to assume. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one here who feels like there's not enough time in the day, right? Time management, well, I mean, the struggle is real. It's tough. I'm always on a quest to get better at time management. And so I found an example that when I realized this, it kind of just blew my mind. I was like, wow, really? I want to share that with you today. So here's the thing. We all start with 168 hours each week. That's our baseline. Now, for the sake of this example, we'll say the average person sleeps about 7 hours a night, so we'll subtract 49 hours from our baseline. Then, we'll say the average person works 40 hours a week, even though sometimes we wish we could compromise on that. We can't. So we'll subtract those 40 hours from our baseline. You know what that leaves us with? 79 hours. I was like blown away when I realized that the things I couldn't compromise on, like work and sleep, left me with 79 hours. I had nothing to show for that. So I really started to look at how I was spending my time. Now, of course, we're all a little bit different. We have a unique situation. If your sleep or your work schedule is different than this, then by all means, change this formula to accommodate what's true in your life. Then, of course, we all have responsibilities too. We have things that we have promised our time away to and that we don't want to or can't compromise on. So we'll look at those responsibilities, again, write them down, figure out how much time you've devoted to those things, and then subtract that from your baseline. The goal here is to get a good idea of exactly how much free time you have so that in step number 5, we can reserve that free time for the items on your list. Physically schedule it. Use a calendar app if you have to. There's one thing I've learned, it's that if an option, an appointment, if it doesn't exist in my calendar, then that to-do or that thing becomes optional or flexible. Optional or flexible won't get you to your goals. The idea here is, again, to figure out your free time, get it scheduled, and then we can move on to our final step. And we've covered a lot of ground here so far. We understand your purpose and what role that it plays in your overall picture, your dream. You understand the importance of building your support system and how they can keep you motivated and going forward. We have our platform, we have our checklist, we're ready to go, right? We've even got all this stuff scheduled. So we're good, right? Well, not quite. All of this will have been for nothing if you skip step number 6. And that's to give yourself a deadline. You must give yourself a deadline. If you don't, you'll enter that realm of option and flexibility. This isn't an option. You aren't flexible. We're all here today because we want great things for our lives and for our business. And the only way you can make that happen is if you make your dream your priority and be too stubborn to take no for an answer. On episode 63 of the B.Hooked podcast, Kate said that evolution is a requirement for a digital crafting business. In 2013, I started an Etsy shop called B.Hooked Crochet. You know what isn't a part of my business today? An Etsy shop. As you learn, grow, and discover more of what you have to offer, your dream will naturally evolve. 5 years ago, I had that one simple dream. And if you were to go back to that really embarrassing video for me, and you asked that girl where she would be in 5 years, you know what I would have said? Right here. Because I dreamt this life. I crafted this life with diligence, perseverance, and deliberate execution. Using these very 6 steps, they're such an integral part of my life and of my business. And if you incorporate them into your life as well, it's the only way that you can make those dreams a reality. Now, I'd be lying if I said that this was going to be easy, that following these 6 steps will be a piece of cake. It's not. You'll experience emotions like self-doubt, worry, stress, in a way that can only point back to you. You will be in charge of your schedule, your future, your finances, your failures. But above all else, you will be in charge of your life and your legacy. 2 things that have the absolute potential to transform the lives of others. Now, as we wrap up our session here today, I want to ask that every one of you please raise your hand as high as you can. Now, raise your hand 2 inches higher. Every single one of you raised your hand 2 inches higher when I asked. You know what that tells me? That tells me that even you don't know how high you can go. That perhaps your limit really isn't your limit. Dream big, friends, and go make them your reality. Thank you. Now I have to say that at the end of that presentation, you can't actually see it through the video of everybody raising their hand, but that was such a powerful moment. People are still talking about it today, that everybody in the room at that time, even people who weren't participating in the event, some of the people who were helping, the photographer, the guy who was doing the video, every single person raised their hand 2 inches higher when I asked them to. And at that moment, every single one of those people realized that maybe their limit wasn't really their limit. And so that's what I'm asking you today. Think about your limit and then question yourself, because you have to ask, is your limit really your limit? Sometimes we need to get into an uncomfortable situation to be able to push ourselves. And if you want it bad enough, you can absolutely come out on the other side. So how might we relate this to you if crochet is your hobby? Well, think about it in terms of a pattern. Let's say you have a pattern that just really is beautiful, but you have no clue how to do it, or maybe it uses a technique that you're unfamiliar with. I know so many people who have that pattern in their mind and it just sits there and they never act on it, or they never make the thing because they're just afraid. They're afraid that they're gonna fail, and maybe they'll waste the yarn or the time that went into that. Well, I challenge you today to push yourself. Dig that pattern out of the archive, wherever it is, and just try it. But the bottom line is I just want you to try. When you fail, you learn from that experience. So even if you start that pattern and you try it and you fail, you make a mistake, well, you've learned from that instance, and guess what? You won't make that mistake again. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. It was so much fun bringing this episode to you and creating it. So if you liked it too, let me know. I would love to do more of this in the future, but I won't know unless you tell me. So you can either tell me in the comments section, or quick and easy, go ahead and hit the like button. That is a really solid way that I know who liked the video and who didn't like the video. So more likes mean that I will likely do an episode like this in the future. So hit the like button, leave me a comment, tell me what you thought, and of course, subscribe to the show so you won't miss next week's episode. All right, so that'll wrap it up for this episode of B.Hooked TV. Stay tuned for the next episode next week. I can't wait to see you there. Bye for now.